All right, let's go to Mark Dice. That's a great question. You know, Mark has a degree in media, in radio, television, film, and in analyzing media. He's kind of a political scientist of media. And for over 12 years, he's been just dominating. Got to be billions of views total, hundreds of millions on his own YouTube channel. But what I love about Mark is he's accelerating. And I'm not lecturing Mark, but he really should listen to me. I told Paul 5, 6 years ago, you're going to do weekly videos, you're going to come on, you're going to tweet, or I'm going to cut your pay in half. And I pay Paul well, he deserves it. He said, okay, Alex. And I sent him the map and made him do it. He's better than I am on air. Let's just admit it, at least to many audiences. Mark's as good as I am or better in many ways. Okay, so I said, Mark, stop trying to have national TV shows. You've already have them. They don't do anything. I've done them too. Be yourself. You will dominate. Now, I'm not bragging here. Now I'm telling Mark, move to Texas, set you up good. You can run your own awesome program. You can share in the victory. We need him. Because I don't have the money or crew to set up in San Diego. I need the best minds, and Mark Dice is one of them. And I just decided to go ahead and just say it on air. There's total transparency here. Mark, I can't even get Mark out here, though. So I'll find out what you're going to lose, Mark, if you come out. You're coming out here in the next few weeks. Paul's coming here in a few weeks for 2 weeks. You must come to the mothership. I want you here. Not to, like, be under my even command. You're smart. You don't say stuff you can get sued for. You're the kind of guy I need is like an editor. I want to build a whole nother mothership, see? I want a big mothership factory. Not that I'm in charge of one mothership. They can blow that up. I want to have a big mothership factory. See, but I need somebody that can command a mothership. There's only Drudge and InfoWars and Breitbart. The others aren't even We need motherships. We need command attack information warfare aircraft carriers. You understand? We need weapons platforms. We need leaders. I need you to join the info war, Mark Dice. You've been a big part of it, but now's the time. I know I'm ranting. Go ahead.
You know, I thought you'd really made it when Hillary Clinton called you out, but I think it's almost as big of a badge of honor to get called out by Saturday Night Live. And that just goes to show that they finally are really admitting that they're losing the information war. And Rachel Maddow's pathetic stunt with her bombshell Donald Trump tax returns, not only was it an absolute egg on her face instance, really eclipsing Geraldo's opening of Al Capone's vault. It took 30 years for someone to finally top the most overhyped, epic fail live television reveal. But Rachel Maddow did it by hyping up this big bombshell of Donald Trump's taxes, which we're going to finally expose his ties to the Russians, and it's the smoking gun to finally bring impeachment charges and get him taken down. And of course, not only was it nothing, but it actually only just helped him, and it made Obama and Bernie Sanders, Mitt Romney, and others look even worse because Trump pays a higher percentage of tax than them. So she goes on last night on Jimmy Fallon, The Tonight Show, not to make fun of herself for overhyping this, not to apologize for this ridiculous clickbait tweet that she sent out hyping up her event, but to actually brag and be egged on and encouraged by Jimmy Fallon about how this was still some supposed big bombshell story. This isn't news. They're not news. These are enemy propaganda.
They are conscious. Exactly. That's a great point I hadn't thought of. They're still trying to sell a dead corpse. Everybody's laughing at her. The arrogance level of even after they've taken a fraud, sold a hoax, they're now regurgitating the same fraud in a confidence game, and it's not working. What the hell's their problem?
Their audience has become children, and that's why people are flocking to the alternative sources. That's why people are getting so popular. Smaller, people like me over the last 10 years have been just slowly chugging along like the little engine that could, and now getting some decent viewers, and they're absolutely scrambling.
Come on, decent viewers. You have millions a week.
It's pretty
Please
good,
stop. We're not trying to brag. I want to be clear. This isn't about bragging. But we're bigger than they are. Drudge is the biggest website in the world after MSM. It's number 2. And MSM's like billions of emails or something, so it's not even, it's all BS. Drudge is the biggest thing in the world. And they have articles every week. Drudge is dead. Drudge is nothing. We need to celebrate the fact that we, in the marketplace of ideas, we've won the Super Bowl over and over again, like the Patriots.
They're such phonies. If you look at some of the CNN hosts and even, some of the folks in the other media outlets like Geraldo Rivera, he barely has 100,000 Twitter followers. Someone like the Cuomo over at CNN, Chris Cuomo, he has supposedly 1 million Twitter followers, but
they buy those. They're like, what, 90-something% of Obama's and Michelle's were fake?
He can barely get a dozen.
I can buy 1 million Twitter followers tomorrow. Paul Watson has like 500,000. I have like 700,000 or something on our channels, or more than that, all of them. The point is, he has more than the BBC combined in actual reading impressions. And now they're starting to block it. We have to get into censorship, though, because here's the deal. We're kicking their butt up one side and down the other. They're striking back.
Yeah, and first they tried with the fake news. That didn't work. That backfired. And now they're kind of even regretful that they even launched that term. And even Jake Tapper, another fake news analyst over at CNN, is admitting that his 7-year-old son calls him fake news in order to taunt him. And so they kind of regret, they regret, concocting this label. But
let me ask you that. Why do you think you're popular with, like, from what I found, 30 and up like I am, which is a key thinking demographic up to old folks. But let's just face it, Paul Watson, people like that are super hot. People like 10 years old to about 20 or 18. That's the demographic the globalists really want. Everywhere at my kids' school, other schools, softball games, you name it, everyone just runs around. Oh, you're Alex Jones. You're the one that has Paul Watson or Gavin McInnes or these other people on sometimes, or Pootie Pie or whatever. So why do you, what's happening there, Mark Dice? Why is Generation Z on fire, totally recognizing that their parents and the liberals are fake? What's happening?
Well, now that they're finally kind of coming of age, they're not necessarily children anymore, and they've been living in this environment that has been trying to control them and tell them what they can and cannot say, and has been feeding them these bizarre narratives that are...
But why are you and I then more popular with young folks, but also middle-aged? I mean, why is it these certain shows that are popular with the kids? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, let's face it. A lot of the information on the smartphones, it's sort of pseudo synopsis crack. It just triggers the dopamine receptors in people's brains.
Let's say it. Paul Watson changes the subject every 15 seconds. It's great. It's riveting, but it's designed for kids with no attention span.
People's attention spans are, literally that of a goldfish, and that's why people, watch people play video games online. And so the media they're really entertainment, but they're also enemy propaganda. I mean, realistically, CNN, ABC, CBS, all these major liberal outlets.
Wasn't that pure truth when Trump said they're the enemy media?
They are the enemy of the people, because they're not news. They're not even liberal news outlets. Like when you look at BET, at least you know what they are. They're black entertainment television, which, by the way, speaking of Lil Bow Wow in the previous segment, the founder of BET, now the wife, the co-founder, admits that she's ashamed of what it's become, because they started it back in the 80s as a cable channel for black people and black interests. It was then sold to Viacom, one of the big 6 media companies. And she has come out recently and admitted that she's ashamed at what it has become, because they obviously just exploit and perpetuate the very worst stereotypes or aspects of thug and ghetto culture. And so that's why we see people celebrating what little Bow Wow has said. And so we're seeing a lot of the younger kids, as they're coming of age, they're realizing that this system has been so phony, so fraudulent. They're empty inside. They're not satisfied. Their relationships are in shambles. They have no real job prospects. And so they're trying to find out what it is that's going on. That's why they're flocking to people like me, people like you, Paul Joseph Watson. There's a whole crop of, sort of mid-20-year-old millennials now popping up on YouTube that are getting pretty big audience.
Exactly. So let me ask you this. They're going to strike back with censorship. We'll talk about that in a moment. But look at Bow Wow's tweet. His uncle says, kill Trump, shoot the police, spray them with bullets. You cover it, we cover it. People are pissed. He then says, yo, or ayo, real Donald Trump, shut your punk ass up before talking bleep about my uncle at Snoop Dogg before we pimp your wife and make her work for us. So sex slavery. These millennials don't seem to get. You're threatening, your uncle's threatening to kill the president. He responds and says it's not nice, and then you act butthurt and say you want to kidnap and rape his wife, basically. I mean, what the hell do they have what is wrong with these people?
A lot, clearly. And that's why these major news outlets like CNN, the Counterfeit News Network, they'll take the most minuscule little thing that Donald Trump said that's perhaps controversial, and they'll talk about it for 3 days, for 5 days, for the entire news cycle. But something like this, it just disappears. You may recall the thugs that live tortured that poor guy on Facebook Live. That story disappeared. It was mentioned literally once. It was perhaps one segment, a 30-second segment on most of these news outlets. It disappeared. It vanished. Now, the media could take a story like that and talk about it for a week, 2 weeks. They could have turned this kid into the next Trayvon Martin. But that's what they do with their chosen stories. They'll pick a certain case and they'll blow it up, turn the person into a martyr, or turn someone into a hero.
So it's lying by omission, too, because if we look at the 474 reported pedophiles, 30-plus kids in dungeons, confirmed by the police. You rescue kids in sex dungeons, 30-plus in California and L.A., we know Trump's behind exposing it. We have from Eric Prince, CIA, you name it, that are fighting. I can't get into the details, but it's amazing. It's a James Bond movie. It's covered one time that they found 30 kids in slave dungeons.
You can't say that there's not collusion when, if you watch the big three major networks, the broadcast networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, their evening news shows, they'll have the same stories when it's not a big national story. It's an isolated incident.
It'll be one white guy allegedly raped a woman, and they'll just put it out because white guys are rapists. But then they'll cover up a bunch of Muslim rapes.
There's obvious certain stories that are going to be the top stories that everyone's talking about that should be covered on all major news networks. But then there's other stories which are isolated incidences or local issues that they'll pick, and then all of a sudden, just mysteriously, they're on all of the major networks.
Sure, and as a media analyst, you're obsessed with that, and you should be. But I think the public gets it. So now we're able, with Drudge and others, to actually look at real news, make it the meme. That's why they want to block us. I notice what they kill is our stuff that's going viral. Now, though, they banned almost all of Paul's articles this week on Facebook. And all I'm saying is, brother, you have your followers and listeners. Please do a report about it, because if it happens to you, I'm going to talk about you. People don't think InfoWars is too big to not need help. They're hitting us hard, man. Facebook, Twitter, they banned almost all Paul's articles this week. I mean, it's getting bad. And they admit they are. Google announced, Drudge has it today, they're going to start, quote, blocking fake news. That means anything that's truthful. So this is on, man. What should we do about that?
We need to just ramp it up. We need to keep exposing them, and we're just growing. That's why they're in a panic, really, because your audience, the truth is just spreading and spreading and spreading. And so we need to actually go old school, like what Matt Drudge has been suggesting for some time. Instead of using these social media ghettos to rely on to get your information,
just have blurbs that say, I can't post here, go to my site to see it.
Well, and bookmark Infowars.com, bookmark Drudge Report on your browser. Instead of just following sites on Facebook who are obviously going to filter.
Yeah, don't use it as your web portal. Just like folks went away from using something as their homepage, or the old nav bars at the top. Just stop using them as your launch page. That's the end of them if you just do it.
And that's why I think, Drudge tweeted out last week that the Facebook page for, quote, official Drudge Report and Matt Drudge were not his. And so obviously they were started by a fan. And so then people started following it, not knowing whether it was his or not. They weren't verified pages. They didn't have the blue check, but they still had 1.2 million followers on one of the pages.
Oh, if he had an official page, it'd be 20 million.
It wasn't Drudge's page. He didn't start it. He wasn't posting there. And so I think he had it pulled because he doesn't want people.
Sure, that makes sense. We had to do that ourselves. Because I used to let folks have sites in my name, then they start putting, like, on purpose, obviously, racist stuff or whatever. The news is like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, it's incredible. And that's why he had it pulled, because he doesn't want people to rely on scrolling through your Facebook feed. So we need to go.
It's basically stealing your identity, too, because if you let somebody else, fan pages are great, but then it becomes a problem when they give it to somebody else and then they want to sabotage you.
Yeah, and then you see instances like what happened with when people start tweeting out things on parody Twitter accounts or fan Twitter accounts that get mistaken for real tweets. We see Maxine Waters and other people start talking about a fake tweet that Michael Flynn allegedly posted. It was from a fake account. I mean, Tommy Lahren was tweeting, or was trending on Twitter a couple weeks ago because a fake Twitter account tweeted some racist things, and so everybody starts freaking out, calling her a racist. She's one of the top trends on Twitter. And that's real fake news. And that's why we just need to keep talking to people, really get off of these ghettos, like Drudge said. That's why I think you guys are doing so well, having your own platform and getting
Mark,
out.
I agree with you. Look at this right here. Was Obama insider Robert Gibbs behind McDonald's anti-Trump tweet? Gibbs now McDonald's chief communications officer. He's over it. He's the guy that famously said, I lie to the public all the time. I lie about drones. I lie about taxes. I lie, and laughs at us like we're dumb effers, like Zuckerberg and Gruber say. And then you read on. I mean, he's a prime suspect. He's over it, and they put up this anti-Trump tweet about his small hands and how he's a jerk or whatever. I mean, look, my gut tells me it's Gibbs. What do you think?
I think that they have a social media manager that uses something like TweetDeck, or has multiple Twitter accounts that they're managing through various software, API platforms. And I think that this was someone who thought that they were logged into their own account, but was actually logged into the McDonald's account, their social media manager, and then didn't realize that they tweeted it from the wrong account. And that's why McDonald's was very careful, saying that Well, Twitter told us, we are investigating. There's no police investigation. There's no police report. What Twitter told them, I think they're talking about the flood of responses, because if somebody hacked into Twitter's account, the hacker is certainly going to be tech savvy enough to realize that when you respond to someone's tweet without putting a character in front of the @real Donald Trump, that it only shows up to the people who mutually follow those two accounts. So if the hacker wanted everybody who was following the McDonald's account to see them slamming Donald Trump, they wouldn't have tweeted just once, and they certainly wouldn't have just replied to Trump, or they wouldn't have just replied in that manner. They would have quoted the tweet.
Sure. Why'd they pin it to the top?
Oh, I didn't know that they pinned it to the top. That's okay. Well, now that changes everything right there.
Well, I don't even know how it all works. I mean, you're better at this than I am. I'm just asking you. Paul's good at it, isn't he? So let me ask you this. What do we do, though, as they start to strangle us? Look, we're getting more radio stations, but I mean, tell you, they are decimating us on Facebook, on YouTube. They admittedly have all these governors blocking stuff being spread. We have 3 million subscribers on our channels, 2 million on one. Most people don't get the subscription. I guess people just have to remember, like you said, to pin our page, to remember it and come back to it, and then spread it. If our listeners just keep spreading articles, keep spreading videos, we'll beat this. Well, they just have to know this is a war. This isn't about me making more money or Mark Dice. I'm so happy right now. I don't ever need more money in my life. My family's got a ranch. I don't need anything. I don't want to have a bunch of crap. I got a Dodge car. I love it. I want to beat these people that literally think the country belongs to them, that want to brainwash our kids, take full control of society. They're not leaving us alone. They're bullies. So my full will is against these people.
People need to just go old school again and start communicating again. I mean, it's become common knowledge that it's almost a joke where people don't talk on the phone. They just communicate through social media, which is not communicating, because in 60 seconds, verbally on the phone or face-to-face over at a barbecue, you can communicate more information than you could in pretty much 30 minutes tweeting it out or texting.
And again, it's human communication. It's not what somebody else did sending it out. And I'm not saying don't send our stuff out, but more listeners should create their own YouTube or Facebook accounts or their own site. And whatever it is, whether it's gardening or whether it's, stargazing or bird watching, whatever it is, or music, just your own humanity that isn't centralized and controlled, that will bring them down.
Going old school, like I said, I can't stress enough to bookmark certain pages. You go and then check out your 3, 4, 5 favorite news sources directly, and then that way you're not being filtered through Facebook. I tried boosting posts on Facebook. A lot of people may not be familiar with this.
I've even paid. It doesn't work.
It's a joke. For those who aren't familiar, when you have a fan page or a public page like Alex and I have, they restrict the distribution of our posts. And so in order to allow those posts to be distributed and show up on people's news feeds, they ask us to pay them. And so you can go through the budget, and I mean, it's something like $4,000, Alex.
It's a total scam. We've done it, doesn't work. And then meanwhile, our own people our listeners go and post it. They go, oh, that's spam, and take it off. And then and again, they're taking stuff off our own page. They won't even let us now. If it's like a senator comes on, they delete that. I know when something's really credible and really big, they just block it.
Well, it's incredible. I've had multiple videos demonetized from YouTube, I mean, for well over a year and a half, and they say it's sensitive content. We'll allow you to have it on here, but we're not going to let you run ads on this. Meanwhile, the same exact story or the same exact clip is shown on CNN's page, on some big liberal networks.
Yeah, no, it's just how Hollywood's run. These big monopolies screwing everybody. It's all coming to an end. Undoubtedly, it's coming down. Even if they try to shut us down, they can't put the genie back in the bottle. How do you predict in the next 5 years? Look into the future. How is this all going to end? What do you see in 5 years?
I think they're going to try to bring down some other big YouTubers like PewDiePie, only not just entertainers. I think they're going to start to come after people.
The creative chilling effects, everybody rolls over.
Yeah, and they're going to try to hit us financially. We just saw BuzzFeed published an article targeting certain news YouTube channels, naming Paul Joseph Watson specifically.
Oh, he's the target. Others. They're scared of him.
And they're trying to go after us financially, and they're going to say, well, we'll allow you to maybe, still have your channel. But
that's right. They're telling their people, go flag this, shut down Paul Watson, because his average video gets 5 million views. They cannot stand it. They cannot stand it.
When you look at the propaganda they're putting out on the official, YouTube creators pages, they're always a 50% thumbs down. I mean, you look at
nobody wants what YouTube's force feeding.
Well, that's why they kicked Jay Leno off of the NBC Tonight Show. He was #1 for almost 20 years. They replaced him with Jimmy Fallon.
And that's because, I know behind the scenes, I'll stop at that, the guy's actually a libertarian patriot. He's a great guy.
He is a great guy. You really couldn't tell his politics because he went after everyone pretty equally.
But Leno openly is an Americana guy. And he didn't, the execs didn't like him. He bucked. I know people that work on the show. I know people that know Jay. I'm going to leave it at that. Jay is a patriot. Jay's a listener. I've been told 6 years ago, Jay's a listener, but I'm going to stop. I mean, hell, Jay plugged me 18 years ago on air. Go ahead.
There's a clip of Jimmy Kimmel on David Letterman back in 2008 or 2009 when Jimmy Kimmel got his own show, and he told David Letterman that he was actually surprised and he wishes that Letterman would have told him that he would be lying for a living, and he has to lie about liking the television shows. He has to lie about liking the celebrities. He has to promote all these different products and television shows, and that's what these people do. A lot of them when they sign those.
And Jay Leno isn't a horse, even though he had top ratings, just like Larry King. Larry King wasn't perfect, but he was his own guy. They couldn't tell him what to do. He's gone. They put in Piers Morgan, total failure. Do 5 more minutes with us, my friend. There's Mark Dice. Find his books and more at markdice.com. Like I say, go to his Twitter or Facebook. They're much bigger, but those may be gone next week. This is a war, folks. And listen, free shipping on Super Male Vitality, 30% off, amazing, just known herbs, concentrated to boost your vitality. Paleo, man, so much more. Sign up for our free newsletter, Infowars.com/show. And we've got some big 50% off discounts. We're going to email you with promo codes. The skin, nail, and hair formula, BioPCA, that's super low price, is 50% off. That's at cost, by the way. And like competitors have the same amount of one ingredient, costs $45. This costs a third of that, and it is half off right now. InfoWarsLive.com. We'll be back with the 4th hour. Anthony Cumia coming up in about 8 minutes, but I'm going to finish up with Mark Dice. Stay with us. It's a war, folks. You cannot hype how real this is. Who'd think InfoWars, because of you, be changing the world? All right, Mark Dice is here. I got more calls, Dustin and Joe and BC and Jim and Patrick, and I apologize I haven't gotten to you yet. I need to get to your calls. We also have another guest host coming up who does a great job, Anthony Cumia. In closing here, Mark, we're back and forth. We're ranting about this. I just hope listeners and myself don't miss the fact that history's happening. The elite is collapsing. Nationalist movements are exploding. The rediscovery of humanity, normal human culture is here. They've tried to jam that, attack that, but people are organically going back to it. Kind of like bugs you spray with pesticides, some become immune. I mean, this is an exciting time to be alive. I mean, again, what more do you want to say? What else do you see coming in the future?
No, this is finally restoring the republic. This is what we've been fighting for you for 20 years, me for 12 years. We've had a tremendous victory. It's exciting to see we're taking back the country, we're taking back the culture, and this small minority, this very loud, active, and well-funded minority of social justice warriors are absolutely scrambling now because they're losing control, and every attack that they try to make against us now just blows up in their face. We have the president of the United States calling out major news networks as fake news, the very label that they had literally coined in order to try to demonize.
And then they're retreating. They're retreating, saying, don't use it, too late, too late.
They're admitting that it had backfired. Washington Post, which literally coined the term, is admitting, and Slate and all these other liberal outlets are admitting that it's backfired. And when the president of the United States is now calling very creators of this term, the name that they use to try to demonize and shut down the rising alternative independent media, you know that they have a serious problem. And you can look at their numbers. Their Twitter followers are fake. You can look at the likes. You could buy likes and retweets as well. But look at the engagement. Nobody's watching these people. Nobody cares.
Oh, they're dead. And big corporations are desperate. Okay, the old lies didn't work. Triple the lies. But now we're seeing liberal brainwashing collapsing on YouTube and Facebook. Their resistance is collapsing. I think that's why the censorship's intensified, trying to bolster their own troops. But it's like Hitler at the Battle of the Bulge. He's only slowing down his final defeat.
You know, the liberals are sort of like Hillary got left at the altar at the wedding. All the guests arrived, the reception tables were set, the meals were cooked and ready to serve. And then all of a sudden, Hillary got left at the altar.
Exactly.
So they're still real heartbroken. They're upset, and they keep getting this false sense of hope with a recount. We're going to get a recount. No, you're not. We're going to have the Electoral College shut them down. No. And then they just keep getting more and more desperate, like Rosie O'Donnell.
And now the Intelligence Committee came out and said, okay, they were spying on Trump.
Yeah, it's insane. And to say that there's not a shadow government working against him is absurd. And
he can't even get his he can't even get his pictures hung up at the VA.
Yeah, the fact that they're so viciously against him goes to show that they're getting desperate because, like,
does that not certify Trump as pure gold? That the whole globalist enemy, from the communist Chinese, the Islamists, they're all just crapping themselves. This is delicious irony.
This is great. You know, I think this is the reprieve of Nineveh, man. This was the hand of God stopping the final destruction of this country. We were right at the edge. I mean, we were this close to the point of.
And by the way, I've prayed about this, and I know. I've studied history and the Bible. God didn't do this because of us. Our ancestors were so good, and that because of their work, we've been given this final reprieve. If we don't take this, we'll be destroyed. Go ahead.
A lot of people fell asleep at the wheel and just sort of let things go and got lost in an entertainment wasteland. But this is the Great Awakening now. And not only is it reflective in the audience that you have and that I have, but it's also showing with the youth. Because I'm telling you, in the last year, really 6 months, I mean, I've seen so many young college kids, millennials, popping up on YouTube and getting involved.
And that's what scares them.
We're seeing a whole new crop of millennial commentators now on Fox News, writers for The Hill. That article that you read about Bow Wow on The Hill that's linked up on Drudge Report, that was written by a millennial.
That's right. Stay there. I'm going to say bye to you on the break, then coming up.